Well, it's Sunday afternoon, and I'm driving down the road here in my Ford, and I was thinking, what is God to the alchemist? And then you got to ask yourself, well, what is God to anybody? Many people project their own psyche outwardly as if that were a reality when it's really their vain imagination. So the idea possibly then becomes that God is a projection of yourself in a way, but somehow far superior, like this mystical spirit that floats around in a condensed form and causes things to become manifest throughout the entire universe. Well, we don't have any evidence for that. But what about the internal God? You know, there's this idea that, like in the old cartoons, when somebody's presented with a moral conundrum, there's a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. And this is really showing the internal portion of humanity and how you see yourself as a God in a way that you could either choose the path of good or evil. Other people think God is they believe in pantheism, so God's everything. There's nothing that isn't God in some way, and I can understand that. I think to the alchemist, God is going to be that cosmic force that causes things to be in order, from the geometric patterns of a molecule on all the way up to the patterns of a solar system and the universe itself. It's completely invisible and unidentifiable as to why those things occur, but I can tell you what they're not. It's not what people think it is, and I think that's the quickest way to describe it for the alchemist. Let me give you an example. You know, there's a lot of people out there that when you ask them what is God, they will say, well, God is exactly who the Bible says He is, you know, or something to that effect. And right off the bat, in seeking God, they've made themselves further from it, because the Bible is a book. It's a book written by men. It has wisdom in it. It has curses in it. It's been filtered, altered. But at the end of the day, it's ideas about what's good and evil. It's our search for good and evil, our search for law, and it's really a book about law and how people operate, more so than a book about God. If you actually, the more you read it, there's less information about the nature of God and more information about what humans do and all the messed up things humans do to try to control one another, and how should we handle this. And this outward projection of God is a force that guides nations, and I think this is all very misguided in a way. Unfortunately, there's also some great truth buried in there. So, I mean, it behooves you to look at it. Sometimes you just got to look at it. But people would think that the book itself is divinely written in some way, but that's not what divine writing is. I can show you what divine writing is right now. Look out there. Do you see those trees? That is the book that God wrote. The sun, the sky, the moon, the earth, the trees, the animals, the plants, the DNA, from the patterns within the DNA itself, the geometric vibrational situations of microscopic particles on up to the tremendous patterns in the universe. all of which is intricately woven like a clock so that life can regenerate out of crude material, and a never-ending balance between order and chaos, between random and programmed. And so these things the alchemist sees as the true Bible. That's the true Constitution of America, is all the people that were here before we took it over, basically. And same for the Bible. The nature of God, the stuff He wrote, I say He, that's just the human reflection of saying, okay, well, I have to understand this energy is some kind of a force, Well, so for that we say, okay, He then, in this patriarchal concept, constructed all these things. And now you say, well, why are we saying He? What's with the patriarchy business? Okay, there's a lot of subconscious programming woven into that for social formatting purposes in the Bible, but beyond that, it does make some sense. You see, He, we understand that there's male and female, and for most forms of creation, some things are hermaphroditic, for example, the mulberry tree and other things that can just shift genders and do whatever they want. But most of creation is male and female, and so as above, so below. This grand creation also shows some evidence of that, where the mother would be like the earth, and the father would be whatever comes from the heavens, the rain, the sun. So that's a very old way of thinking, and that, I think, is the balance between earthly forces and cosmic forces, or forces from the sky, that people have divided into a male and female deity in their minds. But really, it takes both of these things for all creation to exist. So if I say God in a term of He, that's just because of my upbringing and the social understanding of things. But really, I do understand that it's deeper than some single gender. It really is both genders in one if you really add it all up. So those are just some thoughts on God for the day, since it's Sunday and all, and since everybody seems to have some lunatic opinion about it, I figured I'd throw mine out there. My dad says that opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one and they all stink. And he's a Capricorn, so I think there's some truth to that. Anyways, have a good one.